Rather than respecting the American people and having an honest, at least partial conversation about what we had all seen, we were told immediately, these are not the droids you're looking for. The point is, for a campaign based on honesty and decency, the spin about the debate appears to be blatant bullshit. And the redemption tour hasn't gone that much better.
The truth is finally bubbling up. And guess what? People are waking up. Legacy media outlets like CNN and MSNBC have been twisting the news harder than a pretzel at a state fair. And who's calling them out? None other than Jon Stewart. Yeah, that Jon Stewart. He just torched CNN in a way only he can. And trust me, we've got the receipts. Welcome to the channel that slices through woke nonsense and exposes media spin without breaking a sweat. Buckle up, grab your popcorn, because this breakdown, it's about to get spicy.
In my mind, the debate was a shocking display of cognitive difficulty, recognizable to, unfortunately, anybody who's dealt with aging parents, and it's a hard watch.
Biden's debate performance, an absolute train wreck. The man struggled to string together a single clear sentence, losing track mid-thought, veering off topic, and freezing on stage. It was awkward, obvious, and impossible to ignore. But did MSNBC or CNN confront it head-on? Nope. They deflected, downplayed, and twisted themselves into pretzels, trying to spin it in Biden's favor.
Amazing that 90% of the conversation is around Joe Biden's style. When up on that stage, Donald Trump was engaged in a level of pathological lying that we've never seen.
Some anchors blamed it on fatigue. Others called it a slow start. One even managed to blame Donald Trump. Yes, really. Instead of admitting Biden struggled, legacy media treated viewers like they couldn't trust their own eyes. This wasn't journalism. It was full-on damage control. And the harder they tried to sugarcoat it, the more insulting it got. Their spin wasn't just misleading, it was condescending. They expected Americans to ignore what they saw and buy into a neatly packaged narrative. But guess what? People aren't blind. And they're definitely not stupid.
Shouldn't the discussions also be about Trump's fitness to serve?
Every time he opened his mouth, he said something insane or that was a lie.
Legacy. Media's anti-Trump obsession has been stuck in overdrive for years. Every flimsy rumor turned into a breaking headline. Every move twisted to keep the unhinged villain narrative alive, even when facts prove otherwise. But when it's their favorite politician on stage, suddenly it's excuse palooza. Gaffes become charming, confusion gets spun as endearing, and failure is rebranded as misunderstood brilliance. That's the media double standard. And Jon Stewart just lit it on fire. During Biden's shaky debate performance, CNN and MSNBC scrambled to spin, deflect, and drag the focus back to Trump. But Stewart? He wasn't having it. He called out the hypocrisy, dropped the act, and told the cold, hard truth, live and unfiltered.
Trump delivered at the debate to expectation. We expect him to be crazy. But Biden's performance and inability to articulate at times was stunning. Like, I could not believe what I was watching.
Trump delivered exactly what everyone expected. Direct, unfiltered, unapologetic. He came in swinging, left with momentum, and didn't hold back. But legacy media, they bent over backward to declare Biden the winner. Why? A few rehearsed one-liners. Meanwhile, they ignored the long pauses, the incoherent answers, the vacant stares. Suddenly, he didn't completely collapse, is the new standard for presidential competence.
Rather than respecting the American people and having an honest, at least partial conversation about what we had all seen, we were told immediately, these are not the droids you're looking for.
CNN and MSNBC aren't just reporting the news anymore, they're selling a narrative. Accuracy and objectivity. Those left the building a long time ago. What matters now is control. Control over what you see, what you think, and how you react. They don't just want to inform you, they want to program you. That's why someone like Donald Trump drives them insane. He doesn't play by their rules or echo their agenda. So they twist headlines, cherry-pick sound bites, and spin stories at warp speed, all to tear him down. To them, Trump isn't just a political opponent. He's a narrative disruptor. And for legacy media, that's the biggest threat of all. They don't debate him. They demonize him. And it's not just Trump. Any outsider who challenges their grip on the narrative gets the same hit job. The media used to hold the powerful accountable. Now, they are the powerful, shielding their own, attacking anyone who steps out of line. And that's exactly where Jon Stewart draws the line. That's where even he calls out MSNBC and CNN.
He has a stutter.
He hasn't debated in 4 years.
He was almost over-prepared.
He had an off night. People have an off night.
You know, the president traveled 6 time zones forward to G7, and he was also continued to do his presidential duty.
The so-called neutral media always has a get-out-of-jail-free card ready for their favorite guy. Sure, we expect spin from Karine Jean-Pierre. She's literally paid to dodge, deflect, and deny. But it's the Olympic-level mental gymnastics from CNN and MSNBC that really take the cake. One pundit actually said Biden struggled because he hasn't debated in years. Oh no, how tragic. The man prepping to lead the free world is just a little rusty at public speaking. Another blamed it on his slight stutter, because apparently every incoherent ramble and lost train of thought was just a charming little speech impediment. But the gold medal? That goes to the genius who claimed Biden was simply battling a cold. A cold? Really?
He was jet-lagged.
He'd been home for almost 2 weeks. He was jet-lagged? How big is that f***ing jet?
Apparently a runny nose now explains blank stares, frozen pauses, and moments of utter confusion. What's next? Mercury was in retrograde. It's like watching your buddy try to convince you his totaled car is just warming up. Except this isn't a car. It's the President of the United States. And while legacy media spins fairy tales, the rest of us are left asking the real question. Who's actually running the show? Because when the Commander-in-Chief starts looking more like a confused bystander than a confident leader, it's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. And no amount of PR magic can cover that up forever.
The point is, for a campaign based on honesty and decency, the spin about the debate appears to be blatant bullshit. And the redemption tour hasn't gone that much better.
As the old saying goes, you can dress up a donkey, but it's still a donkey. And no matter how much polish the media tried to slap on, no matter how many excuses they sprinkled in and called it leadership, the public wasn't buying it anymore. No amount of whitewashing, spin, or carefully scripted mansplaining could save what was already a sinking ship. Biden's public image? In tatters. And no teleprompter on earth can fix that. People saw the awkward silences, the forgetfulness, the gaffes, and started thinking for themselves. The media used to hold the remote control to public opinion. That grip. Slipping fast. Americans are waking up. They're tuning out the noise, turning off the spin, and realizing they don't need CNN or MSNBC telling them what to think. The trust is broken. And no amount of context or cable news damage control can glue it back together. Because when reality hits, even the most loyal viewers start asking uncomfortable questions. And once the blindfold comes off, it's hard to pretend you don't see the truth. That's why alternative voices are rising. Louder, bolder, unapologetically honest. Because someone has to say what the mainstream media won't.
The president is on prompter and fired up.
Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020.
Threat of Trump was so huge that the media and the Democratic establishment desperately clung to the one man they believed could beat him, Joe Biden. To them, he was the only candidate with a proven track record, even if that track record came with incoherent speeches, endless gaffes, and a sinking approval rating. That's why they kept whitewashing Biden's flaws, brushing off real concerns, and pretending everything was fine. Even when the signs were clear, he just couldn't keep going. But reality has a way of catching up.
Confusion with confidence is even more unsettling. Or Or when the president sat down with George Stephanopoulos to prove once and for all how cogent he is and to film a bronzer ad.
When they finally couldn't ignore the elephant in the room, the Democrats reluctantly threw Kamala Harris into the spotlight as a replacement. What happened next? A political nosedive. Voters gave a clear no thanks, handing the Democrats one of their harshest electoral beatdowns in recent memory. Turns out, swapping the figurehead doesn't fix a crumbling narrative. Americans weren't fooled by the costume change, because no matter who was on stage, the script stayed the same, and it was painfully out of touch. Kamala Harris didn't help. Her word salads, fake accents, forced laugh, and dull personality added zero energy to the campaign. Instead of firing up the base or winning over undecideds, she came off as inauthentic and overly rehearsed. Her attempts at relatability felt like ticking boxes rather than genuine connection. At a time when the country desperately wanted clarity, strength, and real solutions, Harris served up empty platitudes and awkward sound bites.
If you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job.
CNN and MSNBC should hang their heads in shame for the mental gymnastics they pulled to cover up Biden's cognitive decline. Instead of honest journalism, we got a non-stop parade of excuses, gaslighting the public into believing slurred words, blank stares, and off-topic ramblings were somehow signs of compassion or folksiness. Let's be real. If people hadn't spoken up, if the noise hadn't been loud enough, and if Biden's mental disconnect hadn't been so painfully obvious that it sparked calls for his resignation, we'd be living in a very different America right now. Under continued Biden leadership, we'd likely be drowning in inflation, facing foreign policy disasters, a record-breaking border crisis, and global embarrassment. The economy would be gasping for air, crime rates would be soaring, and adversaries around the world would be licking their chops at America's weakness. Our allies would be baffled, our enemies emboldened, and everyday Americans left to pay the price. And yet, legacy media would still be telling us everything's fine.